So I'm joining Priscilla Kadungure, who is the acting CEO for Zimbabwe National Boxing and Wrestling Control Board. Good morning, ma'am.
Morning, how are you?
I'm very well.
I'm great.
To start with, congratulations on the Minister of Sport in winning the election to become the boss of IOC.
Thank you so much. We are happy as a sector, we're happy as a ministry, we're happy as a parastatal. Our minister, honorable minister, did it. We are happy about that achievement.
And especially in the month of where we commemorate the women.
Of women, it's significant, particularly to us, the women.
Yes. All right. So I'm just going to jump into the matter of things. Boxing in Zimbabwe. Maybe to start with, would you just want to highlight the state of boxing in Zimbabwe, where we are? I know that boxing some time ago, it used to be a sport here in Zimbabwe that pulled a lot of people and a lot of resources.
Yes.
But it's no longer like that now. But where exactly are we in terms of boxing in Zimbabwe?
Thank you so much. I agree with you that in the yesteryears, boxing has been such a crowd puller. It remains a crowd puller. You agree with me, each time the ring is set up, it's a cause for people, for crowds to gather, That's how much the sport is loved by people and by the country. Currently, I would say the state of the sport in the country is that we are trying hard to push, and you know that there's been a steady increase in growth in terms of participation and performance as far as the sport is concerned, professional boxing particularly, not the developmental one. Of course, the developmental one has had its growth strides that we're working on. So one thing that I would admit to is really the sport has been on the downside, but this is what we are working on. You know that by the end of last year, 2024, we had actually participated in 10 championship fights, intercontinental, continental, and national championships that we participated in. We participated in ABU, African Boxing Union, fights that we did, I think 2 that we participated in, and 1 by the end of the year, the WBA, as well as our own local sanctioning, our own local championship fights that we have been introducing, which we are to launch this year. However, what I would say is we do take note and admit to the fact that there are certain issues that we have identified that they need to be addressed by the sector and by the ministry, which we are working flat out to try and address. One of the issues is the issue to do with sponsorships and promotions, because professional boxing is promotion driven. We need to create an environment as a government, even at policy level, that allows for promoters to participate and get a return on their investment, because you know that promotion is business, but it has to be profitable to the promoters. Mm-hmm. The second aspect that we noted in terms of growing professional boxing as far as it is concerned is that there is need for us to establish an athlete developmental pathway that is clear. Mm-hmm. Administratively, we have been given the purview of professional boxing only, while our sister parastatal, the SRC, Sports and Recreation Commission, is responsible for developmental boxing and wrestling, the amateur side.
Okay.
So what we have discovered is for us to ensure that there is growth in the sport, there needs to be a coordination that is clear in terms of the transition from amateur boxing to professional boxing. So as far as that is concerned, we have engaged with our ministry, we've engaged with our sister parastatal, and we have agreed. We are currently in the process of working on an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding between the Zimbabwe National Boxing and Wrestling Control Board together with the Sports and Recreation Commission to try and establish that that collaboration and that transitioning that is smooth and well coordinated by the 2 parastatals, because at the end of the day, what we want is growth of the sport. Mm-hmm. What we want is the athletes to really enjoy
and benefit
from the sport, because eventually we want all amateurs to participate fully knowing that at one point I need to graduate and turn pro. Mm-hmm. And when they are at a pro stage, it has to be incentivizing enough for the amateurs to want to graduate. Mm-hmm. How does it attract the amateurs? It has really to retain the professional aspect of boxing. How do we do that? We need to commercialize the sport.
Right. That's very true, because boxing we hear of a lot of fights like the one that's been happening in Dubai of late. We hear Banana Unski,
Multi-million
we hear
dollar
all these guys and Tyson Fury, they move big money
Yes.
and everything. But maybe getting back to the basics, you are the CEO of this board, Zimbabwe National Boxing and Wrestling Control Board. What are some of the responsibilities of this board? Can you just try to maybe to highlight and demystify what you exist to do? What are your objectives?
Okay, currently, as per our Act of Parliament, we are a creature of statute. We are mainly mandated with the regulation, control, and supervision of all boxing tournaments in the country. So we make sure that any activity that happens around the boxing ring is well regulated and controlled and in alignment with our statutes. That's our key mandate. But now, like I said to you, that we are pushing for the amendment of our Act. This is an intentional process that is being done from us as well as our ministry. Some of the amendments and issues we think are due for review are to do with the commercialization aspect. Because currently our mandate only confines us to the regulatory aspect of the sport. But once we also get a mandate that is clear in terms of commercialization is one thing that even the NDS1 has allowed us to do in terms of trying to make sure that we have less of a burden to the fiscus and try to generate our own incomes. But commercialization is one thing that we have already been allowed by government, but it needs that statutory and legislative support in terms of it being in the Act. So we are trying to make sure that once the reviews come and we manage to review our Act, it can also give us a mandate that allows the commercialization aspect of the sport and not only confine us to the regulatory aspect of just saying what are the do's and don'ts when a ring has been set, but we also need to be intentional about making sure that the sport is profitable enough. Like other countries, boxing is a multi-million-dollar sport. The same has to be realized in Zimbabwe. We are no exception in terms of that.
That's true. Now, Priscilla, you are the face of this board, and you are the face of boxing in Zimbabwe, being the acting CEO. What's your working relationship like with the stakeholders? And these are your boxers, these are your promoters, these are the people that adjudicate, the referees, and perhaps the fans as well. What's your working relationship with those stakeholders? Do you have an open door policy, or what exactly is it on the ground?
So what we've tried to do as a board is to create an open door policy because our very existence is justified by the presence of the stakeholders. Particularly, I would allow me to say we do have a bias as a board and as a regulator towards the athletes because our main mandate is also to do with the protection of the interests of the athletes. Not to say that the officials are not important, not to say that the promoters are not important, but we've tried to establish an open door policy for all our stakeholders. But all of them, we maintain a clear cognizance of the fact that the key person in this whole equation is the athlete. They justify our existence. They justify the existence of the promoters. They justify the existence of the officials. They justify the existence of the administrators, the administration, which is us, the secretariat. So without the athletes, then all of us are not there. So this is our key stakeholders. Our key stakeholder, but not to say the rest are not important. And one other thing that we've done in trying to make sure that we are in close reach in terms of being accessed by our stakeholders. In line with the devolution thrust, we have ensured that our presence is in all the 10 provinces of the country as we speak. We have got offices in all the 10 provinces of the country to make sure that our representation, our presence is in all the parts of the country. We would love, as we grow more, to be present even in the districts, but as of now, we've only managed to decentralize to the provinces, and in all our offices, the athletes we are available for them 24/7. This goes as far as even our cell phone numbers being available for them because we represent them, we are here because of them, so we need to serve their interests.
And then the other critical component that you've said rightly that there's no damage for boxing to really happen. The promoters themselves. Are there some maybe incentives, so to say, in place so that maybe new promoters, because the more promoters that comes on board is the more bouts we then have,
That's true.
the more fights.
That's
The
true.
more fights, the more even fighters. And boxing it quickly returns back to where it was before. How has it been like with the promoters?
So, like I said, one of the key things that we're doing this year is a specialized engagement approach with all our stakeholders. Last year we were having stakeholder engagements with all our stakeholders at once, but this year we have decided to group them. We have promoters meetings that we're going to have separately, athletes meetings separately, officials meetings separately. One of the key issues that is and was on our agenda with the promoters is the issue of how best we can incentivize them as a government. This is more like a consultative process, because for us to say, because we are in this office to bring solutions and to be the listening ear of the stakeholders and to ferry information to government, we mediate between our stakeholders and the government. So we need to engage government from an informed point of view, which is why we are engaging these promoters, because when we sit down with them, we can then engage and agree on how best the government can also incentivize them, which is the same message and recommendations that will then pass on to government on behalf of our stakeholders.
So promoters out there, boxing Kunemari, there's a lot of money to be made if you come and then talk to these guys at the board here and find your place to promote a lot of boxing. It has to be people that build it. But coming back to you, Priscilla, what initiatives are you putting in place to ensure that maybe the quality of boxing in Zimbabwe rises up to the standards of other boxing nations out there? Not only the boxers, but also the adjudication and everything that goes on into boxing.
Okay, one of the key things I'll talk about in terms of trying to make sure that we produce good quality in terms of whatever boxing related, whatever, anything, all things boxing in Zimbabwe. The first thing we did is to align our own statutes in terms of compliance with our stakeholders. One thing that we have been clear about with our stakeholders is compliance. We have tried to, we are going, this is a continuous process where we inform, because as a regulator, but unewo duty again, not just kusunga, but we also have a duty to educate our stakeholders before tazowasunga. So one of the things that we have made clear and intentional, that we're intentional about, is the issue of making sure at least once in every quarter we need to have a section of our stakeholders that we educate before we then go kunosunga. So this goes as far as sanctioning of my tournaments is concerned, adjudication in terms of refereeing and judging how this is done. We have got courses that we introduce time and again. I think last year we managed to have 2. One was in Manezi, the other one was in Harare, where we facilitated for our officials we facilitate for them to have my refresher courses. We also have my forums that we create in collaboration with other sporting bodies. For example, now we're working where we actually do have an MOU with Zimbabwe Olympic Committee. These ones have been key in terms of educating our sector in terms of anti-doping issues. These have been topical issues for the past few years and months, which are very critical in terms of our sport. Boxing world over has been known to be one of the sport codes which anti-doping issues are more rampant. So this is a key issue that we need to time and again ensure that there is education for our athletes. So each time we have a forum, we make sure we've got a ZOC official to talk about anti-doping issues to our athletes so that they are well versed, they know which drugs to take, which drugs interfere with their participation in terms of enhancement. For some drugs you can take just thinking that this is for my medicinal purposes, but when it actually has an effect in terms of performance enhancement for our athletes. So by the time they vie for a title fight, then they only realize after the anti-doping tests have been done that I've been found in violation, in anti-doping rule violation unknowingly. So one of the key issues that we're trying to do is to educate our sector in terms of the do's and don'ts, while we protect all our stakeholders.
Wonderful. So now I've been privileged to be present in plenty of some boxing bouts which has taken place in this country, be they professional, be they amateur. People, they love boxing.
Yes.
Even under boxing in Zimbabwe, you see, I've been in airport there, Juluka.
Yes,
Juluka, yeah. You see the hall will just be full to the brim, and where they must very say when people used to fight nice boxing bouts, and under boxing, but sometimes in English but is there any plans or likelihood of getting back maybe to schools in the grassroots,
yes,
to the youngsters, to make sure that they actually see boxing as a career of choice that one can actually make from school, that I'm going to be like playing rugby, I'm going to be like doing boxing clubs and everything. Can you just highlight something on that?
So as far as that one, we are going to amateur boxing. Like I said, we are working on an MOU with the Sports and Recreation Commission. One of the key issues that we were discussing with the SRC and the ministry is that we cannot talk of sport ichitangirapa professional at a higher level,
yes,
but it is to come from somewhere. So the somewhere that we're talking about is us introducing sport as a club in all the schools, in the mainstream government schools and even private schools. This is the only way we can say that our sport is safe in terms of tomorrow, in fact in terms of today, because we need these boxers to participate. So one of the things that our MOU is addressing is the collaboration that I spoke about in terms of the establishment of these clubs. We will do them in collaboration with SRC. Our officers together with SRC officers are going to move around ensuring that boxing is introduced as a club. Among other competing sport codes, we need to introduce boxing so that at least people can participate, children can participate from a younger age, then eventually graduate to professional boxing. But we are in agreement and in alignment with the fact that sport has to grow from somewhere. We cannot just talk of professional boxers, we need to start from somewhere, and we are trying to be intentional. Another funny conversation that we actually had the other time, I think it was with the Ministry of Skills Audit, when the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education were there, and they were justifying their pass rate to say, I'm not sure which year, they had the 29%, around the 30-something% pass rate. And we were arguing from the sports sector to say, you know what, you are saying you have a 30 plus or thereabout, I cannot say the exact figures lest I say them wrongly, that you are arguing that this is the kind of pass rate, percentage pass rate that you talk about. But we believe that some of the kids which you categorize as having failed is because they failed in academics that you tested them, but yet you tested them in the correct things that they're good at, which is sport. They probably could have done better. So we are trying to also engage. This is now at another higher level where such engagements, I've seen them taking place and being initiated, to say we need to now be open-minded as a country and as a sector of sport, to say it's not only in academics that we are going to test these children, which is the reason why sport codes like boxing and any other sport code has to be introduced from the mainstream schools, from the primary schools, for people to identify that which they are good at a younger age.
Since we are in the month of women, I could almost count in the fingers of my hand the female boxers that this nation has currently have. I think that's when the Humanalisa Sivanda, that's your Kudakwacha Shivandire, that's your Monica Nkanza, the Chieza Umakoma was also there, and I know Rebai Madonde as well, quite a number of other that are there. But what are you doing? Because we see that is comparing that number to the number of male boxers, ladies, women, girl child. It looks like a number of passes the show. Is there any initiative that you've bankrolled, put in place to make sure that we have the girl child coming and be represented even more?
That's true. We do have a lot that we've tried to do in terms of trying to make sure that boxing has had its misconceptions, not only for the male child, but even for the girl child. Not only for the girl child, but even for the male child. Because most people would like to associate boxing with violence. But one of the things that we have done now, especially now, you agree with me that a lot of people have now embraced boxing for fitness, particularly the women.
Yeah, especially after the COVID. You see people with
post-COVID,
with gloves,
fitness and wellness has ceased to be a luxury. it's a necessity
yeah.
for everyone
Commodity.
post-COVID. And one thing that I've loved is our introduction of boxing for fitness. This is one campaign that we are doing. You'll note that I think it's this coming week. We've had campaigns, drug and substance abuse campaigns, where we are just going there, Mazumba for women that are happening. We are now introducing these campaigns while we put the ring at the front. So whoever is coaching, the Zumba coach, the fitness coach, all those trainers, they now facilitate from the ring. We are trying to introduce boxing because we understand that we need people to have the same understanding as us, because I believe there seems to be an information asymmetry in terms of really what boxing is. It's not the violence that people think it is. It's actually one of the safest sport codes that
most disciplined.
It's the most disciplined sport code that we actually do have. But like I said, one of the things that is critical and key in terms of introducing something or in terms of ensuring that it's embraced is education. People need to know first. And what we have seen as the easiest or low-hanging fruit in terms of introducing back boxing is boxing for fitness. We are using it for wellness events, for fitness events. All the fitness people are sparring. You've seen them wearing gloves, sparring for fitness. Sure. So this is one of the key things that we are doing in terms of introducing back boxing and make sure that it's embraced, particularly by women. It's also one of our key mandates, drawn on even from the NDS1, to make sure that we improve the participation of women in sport, even in administration.
Wonderful. Now, when I read in my Bible, I think I came up with 3 sports that we clearly highlighted. One of them is running, and then wrestling. You don't wrestle against flesh and blood. And then there's also boxing, that I don't box like, just throw a punch all over the place.
It's actually biblical.
Actually biblical. It's one of the sports that's actually biblical. Yeah. But coming back to, now, what is your collaboration with other international organizations to make sure that we remain abreast with what's happening regionally and internationally? Because eventually our fighters will then have to go and fight out there, or people will have to come from out there to come and fight in here, to ensure that we don't lag behind.
Yes.
As the custodians of boxing in Zimbabwe, what are you doing? So
I would say one of the things that I think we've done well, especially last year, is collaboration and engagement with, number one, other sanctioning bodies in the region and in the continent, as well as collaboration and close engagement and communication with boxing sanctioning bodies. We have had our participation. Last year we were in Uganda for the African Boxing Union Convention. Unfortunately, we could not attend the WBC convention because of we had other constraints that we had that then made us not to be able to participate. But we had actually been cleared by government to also participate at the World Boxing Convention. This is the kind of collaborative efforts that we've made in terms of our engagements with other sanctioning bodies at that level. African Boxing Union, WBC has been the most prestigious sanctioning body, as well as other countries. I would love to tell you that last year when we attended the convention in Uganda, Zimbabwe was one of the model sanctioning countries, sanctioning bodies in terms of government bodies that are regulating sport, that was actually being recommended for other countries, African countries, to use as a benchmark in terms of our administration. It has been recognized at WBC level that Zimbabwe's sanctioning level is up there. We actually recommended. The guys were saying you can take Zimbabwe as a reference point in terms of how they do their administration in terms of boxing. One of the things that we have managed to do successfully is acknowledged by other countries in the region and outside the region in Africa, is our clearance aspect, or clearance process of our boxers. We do have a record of all our athletes who fight anywhere in and outside Africa.
Okay.
We do clear them, and we do have the contacts that we've maintained, a database of contacts of all sanctioning bodies in the country, in the continent, in Africa. So we do not have an athlete who goes to fight, for example, in South Africa, in Malawi, in anywhere, even outside Africa, that we are not aware of, that we have not cleared, and that we have not established their status in terms of travel, accommodation. We only clear when we are sure and when we've established the status in terms of their accommodation by the promoter of whatever event. This is something that we have tried and we continue to try to make sure we align with other countries and other sanctioning bodies to ensure that we establish a standard against which all boxers who participate, while we have a known standard to say without a clearance form for any boxer, any sanctioning body, they should not allow them to participate. This then means when we have international bouts taking place in Zimbabwe, before we clear those fights or before we sanction a tournament, we need to have the correct paperwork and clearance paperwork from their various countries. If we have Malawans participating, the Malawian board writes to the Zimbabwean board to say we have cleared such and such a boxer to participate in your country. They are in right standing with their board. We do the same for our own athletes. Of course, like any other system, there remains a few loopholes that we continue to want to improve on. We will improve on the systems as we go. Some are on a case-by-case basis. We have had one athlete, I'm sure, who participated last year. We wrote to the local body of the country in which that lady was participating under the banner of Zimbabwe, but we had not cleared, and that person is not registered with the board. We do that for safety. If you are a Zimbabwean and you are to participate outside the country, carrying the Zimbabwean flag, we are proud of that, but we also need to ensure your safety. We also, because some of the people out there, they use sport to abuse athletes. This is what we safeguard our athletes against. This is what we protect our Zimbabweans against each time they go to participate outside. So I would say that our relationship with other bodies and countries has been, I think it has been okay. We continue to engage and reach out to new ones that emerge. We try to make sure that we engage with them. But as of now, all of them, I'm sure I can safely say we are in communication and contact with them.
Wonderful. Now, Varushanda, they are actually doing work. And what I loved out of this conversation is that you said you're with an open door policy, that people can come and engage you. So boxers out there, boxers and promoters, whatever concerns that you have, you've heard Priscilla here saying that they have got an open door policy. You can bring those to the table. You can discuss. I've been talking to some of boxers out there. Some of them, they've been bemoaning them. Some of the fees that they're made to pay, the annual subscriptions. But like she said, that is an issue that you can bring on board and sit down and then deliberate on it, be it promoters and for the good of boxing. But maybe as my parting shot is in terms of my questions to you, very lastly, maybe it's a suggestion that as you continue on this path of legislation, working on it more, are you not able to include something along the lines of, because we have seen a lot of our boxers, sometimes when they retire, when they go into retirement, and it becomes a very sorry situation.
That's so
Lots of things that happen. Is there maybe no room for you when you go out there controlling along that path to make sure that maybe you just add a little clause that will help some of these boxers as they get towards the end of their careers, they'll be able to be safeguarded?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Security in terms of insurance in courts for athletes has been one of the topical issues, especially from the inception of our board of directors. Our board has been so clear and intentional about us having to make sure that we secure the future of our athletes. This is not just in the event of retirement, but also it can be in the event of an injury. Our sport has got that risk of injury. So what we have done...
injury or death.
Injury or death or retirement. So what we have done as a board, is directed by our board of directors, is they have mandated us to establish what we call a benevolent fund. This is something that we are looking forward to have operationalized, probably by, these are not easy processes, but we've already instituted in terms of my concept Takadze for establishment of a benevolent fund. This is supposed to be a revolving fund that we maintain for our athletes. And we anticipate that the contributions, the athletes who contribute, from the purse levies, will make sure that there's a percentage, probably that is then contributed towards the benevolent fund. The modalities in terms of how the benevolent fund will actually be administered is a different case that has to be set down probably by a separate board of trustees that will regulate and manage that separate fund. But this is something that has been key and is something that has already been tabled for us to establish a benevolent fund. It's actually a provision in our Act of Parliament. We are mandated to ensure safety of our athletes in terms of retirement, in terms of death, in terms of an injury. So this is something that we are just at the stage of trying to operationalize that model and concept of a benevolent fund to safeguard our athletes. Another thing that we are actually working on, when I spoke about the issue of education, one thing that we have also noticed for our sector is sometimes they have got these quick wins where they just have a big purse money, but you probably can fight for that for 2 times in your lifetime. So we are trying to engage other corporates to come on board in terms of educating our sector in terms of as far as financial intelligence and investment is concerned. Yesterday I was actually talking to one of the executive members from NBS. They were saying, no, at any time we can come and have a workshop with your athletes, with your stakeholders to educate them in terms of financial intelligence, in terms of investments, because they also need to know. It's not about them having a big purse money. Our boxer has fought for $20,000, but they also need
20,000 over band rako over shedo kwemkhulu over skole chimwe chimarijo
Onotenga for the ranger. Ya asina a sustainable income source to maintain that kind of lifestyle. So we need to. There's a gap in our sector, financial intelligence. It's something that we need. We have been intentional about it as well, and we are going to be having, like I said, more training workshops that we're going to have, capacity development for our stakeholders. This is one of the key things that we're going to educate them on. But we've started engagements with my insurance companies in terms of alignment. We are still at the preliminaries as far as establishment of a benevolent fund for their security insurance's sake. That one we are still at preliminary stages, but we've already started engaging my insurance companies to guide us accordingly.
I've been chatting to Priscilla, who is the acting CEO here at the Zimbabwe National Boxing and Wrestling Control Board. Now, Priscilla, your parting shots.
Boxing is there. We actually do have a tournament on Saturday, 7 Arts in Avondale. We are trying to make sure that at least we have tournaments in every quarter. 2, 3 in every quarter, but we are coming with a Bring Back Boxing campaign. We are just looking for sponsorships to try and make sure that we set up a boxing ring. These things, they do attract costs. We can never have an entirely free event that we can have, but for that to happen, we need sponsors. So we continue to call upon the corporate world to come and support boxing. Boxing is a viable business when you come to promote it, and we call upon promoters, more and more promoters, to come. They help us. They are important in terms of bringing back boxing, especially retaining the former glory of the sport.
You can join the board in their Bring Back Boxing campaign. Thank you so much.